Hello, hello. Welcome to Inner Work for Greater Good. My name is Emily Eldridge with Change Light. I am the creator of the Change Light system and the host of the Change Light community and the Change Light system course where I teach inner work to change makers and other people who want to make a difference in the world. I teach you inner work that accelerates your power to make a difference, your power to fulfill the mission that you're here to fulfill and to light up the world, which can be enough in and of itself that when we light up, because when we light up the world. So it's all about making a difference, but starting from the inside, which I've found is always the best place to start. In my experience, anytime I want to make a change, anytime I'm noticing a pattern I need to change in my life, anytime, I'm unhappy or what have you, is I always start inside, because I find that if I can at least, maybe there's the root cause of something that I'm struggling with, or maybe there's, inner root for the pattern that keeps repeating in my life. There are all kinds of reasons to go within, or maybe I'm just not showing up as the leader that I know I can be, or I'm having certain reactions, triggered reactions, and it's causing me to not feel as clear and whole and at peace doing what I'm here to do, being who I'm here to be. And so you got to start with that inner work. And so that's my focus, especially when it comes to those of us who are trying to make a difference, because as I always say, so much of the time, those of us who are trying to help other people fail to really take care of ourselves and fail to even realize when we need to take care of ourselves. So, speaking of taking care of ourselves, I had an interesting conversation with a client of mine this past week. And part of that conversation, I always have interesting conversations with my clients. It's not like this was suddenly interesting. I love my clients. They're amazing. But the point is, there was one aspect of it, and she was talking about self-care. And I forgot the context. In fact, I looked through my notes to try to see what exactly were we talking about? Why did this even come up? But I would say that, there's the pattern is to tend to think of, her tendencies to think of other people, take care of other people, not really think about her own needs until she's gotten to, past the point of exhaustion or past the point of aggravation. And so, we were talking about what it means to care for yourself. And what self-care means. And the reason why I think this is an important topic to discuss and to give you my perspective on it is because self-care is such this kind of, buzz term, I guess. I don't know if buzz is the right word, but it's like a term that we hear a lot, self-care and, doing what feels good for you and taking care of yourself. And I don't know about you, but the image that I often get is you do your nails, like that's self-care, or you get you get a massage and that's self-care, or it tends to be, at least in my sort of experience and the way I tend to have perceived it. And you may perceive it differently. You may be more enlightened than I have been, but historically seen it as like some kind of you're pampering yourself, and it's usually having to do with pampering some part of your body, or even maybe just taking time out to focus on yourself and do something that feels self-caring, or where you're hiring someone else to actually take care of you, which is, you could argue, is like, that's what you're doing when you're getting your nails done, or that's what you're doing when you're getting a massage. You're paying someone else to care for you. And I want to deepen the understanding of actual, and in my opinion, is actual self-care, and what is really at the root of true self-care. And it's not getting your nails done, and it's not getting a massage, and it's not suddenly flying off to another country because you feel like escaping your life. I mean, those can be expressions of self-care and things that you do for yourself because you need them. But what I find is that there are so many forms of self-care, caring for ourselves, that lead up to, and the need, or that if we implement them and we take on this attitude towards ourselves, then we don't necessarily like have to go rushing off to another place, or have to suddenly get our nails done, or just need this pampering time. I'm not saying we don't need it. Let me explain. I feel like I'm not being very articulate here. let me just put it this way. What I said to my client was that at the core of self-care is self-respect. Let me say that again. What's actually at the core of self-care, from my attitude, is what's actually at the core of self-care is self-respect. Having respect for yourself in all kinds of ways. So it's caring for yourself, but it's also caring for, it's that because you care for yourself, you make certain choices. And I made a list about the kinds of things that when we respect those aspects of ourselves or of our lives, those are forms of self-care. And they don't necessarily look like getting a massage or your nails done. They don't necessarily look like some kind of spontaneous, like, I need to take care of me type thing. They are choices that we can make daily that can actually, in a way, like preempt us from having to sort of then, oh, I got to do something to take care of myself, because we're making these choices all along the way that are expressions of care and respect for ourselves. I feel like I'm being a little ambiguous here, but I'm trying to just kind of give you the general, and then we'll get a little more specific. So when it comes to self-care, I wrote a quick list of the things that we can respect for ourselves, within ourselves, about ourselves, that are forms of self-care and that then can help us feel more whole and at peace, and without having to get all the other things. So one of them is time. When we respect our own time, then it's easier to, in other words, if you say, you know what, this is my time for me, or you know what, I need the time to do this for my job or for my children or for myself or what have you. It's about respecting your own time. And when we respect the fact that our time is valuable, then we can then set those boundaries, and I'm going to use the word boundaries again, but setting those boundaries around our time, boundaries around our space, boundaries around our energy and where we use it and where we put it. And so respect our own time and know that our time isn't something that we have to give away just because someone wants it. Our time isn't something that we have to get sucked away from us just because someone is sucking that time away from us. That we can actually be respectful of our own time, just as we would be respectful of other people's time. So respecting our own time and our own sense of time, our own space around like the priorities that we have in our lives and what we need to do and what we need to do for ourselves or for the people we care about, that when we respect our own time, that's actually a form of self-care. With each of these, I want you to think about, how does it feel when you don't respect your own time and you don't enforce others in respecting your time, when you don't set boundaries around your time, when you don't make conscious choices about how you spend your time, where you spend your time, with whom you spend your time. What happens when you don't do that? And I can almost guarantee you, if you're a woman, I know men have done this too, but we women, oh man, like we will just give our time away, not even realizing how valuable it is, or realizing how important it is to prioritize where we spend that time, or to prioritize ourselves and the fact that our time is just as valuable, if not in sometimes more valuable than other people's time. And so time is something that is, when we respect time, our own boundaries and space, and what we choose to do with our time, that's a form of self-care. Another one is our own needs. I mean, think about it, ladies. Like, how often do we put other people's needs ahead of our own? And what happens when we do? How do you feel? when you're not respecting your own needs and you're putting other people's needs ahead of your own. I understand that sometimes when it comes to children or family or, I mean, there are certain circumstances where, yes, temporarily, it's like, I got to kind of put aside my needs just for this moment because I need to take care of this other, let's say this child's need. But if we do that chronically, if we disrespect our own needs chronically, in favor of others' needs, then we're not caring for ourselves. And that's when you get, again, how do you feel when that happens? If you let that happen in your life, how do you feel? I mean, I'm sure you've been through this. I know I have, where it's that, you're exhausted, you feel like your needs aren't being met, or people aren't respecting your needs, or like with time, they're not respecting your time. Well, guess what? It's usually because you're not respecting your own time. There's somewhere where there's a disconnect for you in terms of respecting yourself and your needs, your own time. So this is a form of self-care, respecting your own needs, caring for your own needs, but it's like the reason why I feel like I keep saying respect, not just care, but like caring about, but also really respecting as something that's like, this is worthy of respect. And to respect that this is valuable. So that's another one. Boundaries. I've said this a few times already. Okay. It's so funny. Let me just say that I have sat down so many times before the show, or like when I've sat down to like write down to, what am I going to talk about? And boundaries is this like frequent theme that I'm like, I need to talk about boundaries. But then I go, oh God, oh my God, it's such a big topic. Like boundaries are such a big topic. And I've touched on it in previous shows, as you know, if you've seen some of my episodes where I talk about like, if you have anger coming up, really extreme anger, that it could have to do with someone's not respecting your boundaries. You're not standing up for your own boundaries. You haven't been. And so some part of you is angry and it's reactive, or there are all kinds of boundaries are like there are whole books written, right, about boundaries, boundary issues, and the importance of boundaries. And one of the things I would even say, and maybe I will ultimately do a show about boundaries. I mean, I feel like I do like a whole seminar about boundaries. But that when it comes to boundaries, there are certain kinds of boundaries, because I think sometimes people think of boundaries as walls, or they think that you have to use anger to set your boundaries. There are different expressions of boundaries, and there are different, ways that we feel boundaries. There are different types of boundaries that we can have depending on the person, the situation, our history, etc. But in terms of self-care and self-respect, so much of this is around boundaries. And even the basic knowing that it's okay for us to have them at all. It's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to know where I end and you begin, or where you end and I begin. It's okay to have that. It doesn't mean a lack of love, and it doesn't mean a lack of respect for the other person. If anything, when we don't have proper boundaries and we allow other people to disrespect us, then there's a lack of respect here, and it's a lack of respect of ourselves. So even as we might think in terms of you're caring about that other person, you're respecting that other person, but it's not truly respectful or caring if they're not respecting yours as well, or if you're not respecting yours as well. It's interesting. I'm going to throw in here a story in which a friend of mine is struggling with in a relationship that she's in, and it's a new relationship. And she was saying that, well, she was like, she has anger coming up. And she was really struggling with that because she's not comfortable with anger, and she's used to being very calm and nice and kind and understanding and empathetic. She's such a lovely woman. And so as she was talking with me and others about this situation she was dealing with, she would say, well, he's doing, I'm really fed up with this, and it's making me really angry. And, all this kind of stuff that her emotions were clearly trying to get a message to her. But she kept going, but he's really nice. He's nice. And well, but he says nice things, or he does nice things. But the truth of the situation is that he was continually violating her boundaries and her requests for like to say, hey, I need space, or I need time again. And he kept violating it. So here she was angry because she, on some level, knew that her boundaries were not being respected, and her requests were not being respected, and her needs, she had expressed her needs to him, and they were not being respected. And here he was violating, but no, but he also does these other nice things. And I basically said to her, if he's not respecting your boundaries, then he's not being nice. It's not like, oh, but he's nice. No, actually, he's not nice if he's not listening to you and respecting you. And so in a way, we can also look at it in terms of, we can look at it in terms of other people, but we can also look at it in terms of ourselves. Am I really being self-caring? Am I really respecting myself? If I'm allowing other people to disrespect me, is this a fully respectful relationship if I'm respecting them, but they're not respecting me? No. I once wrote a blog that was talking about unconditional love. And I remember thinking like that basically my idea of unconditional love, and I didn't realize this until I dealt with a situation where I was being unconditionally loving to the person and so giving and all this. And he wasn't doing that in return. He was being disrespectful, but oh, but he seemed nice. No, he wasn't showing up in certain ways. And I also wasn't respecting myself in the situation. And so in that case, while I was thinking of myself as being unconditionally loving, and I was so patient and I was so understanding, this was not an unconditionally loving relationship because I wasn't unconditionally loving myself, and I wasn't respecting myself, and I wasn't caring for myself. So that's something that's always, always, always extremely important to remember when it comes to our relationships with other people, because it's not just like, oh, well, I'm being this way. If it's a healthy relationship, there will be healthy boundaries. I always say healthy relationships require, this is not optional, ladies, require healthy boundaries. So when we're talking about self-care and we're talking about respect for self being the underlying thing for true self-care, it's about having healthy boundaries. And boundaries are a huge part of self-care, because when we respect our own boundaries and we enforce our boundaries with other people, we are saying to ourselves, hey, I care enough about you to do this. And we are saying to the other people, I care enough about myself to not put up with this. Or I care enough about myself to know what I need. I was at an event, I'm coming up with, stories, but I was at an event a few weeks ago. I don't know if I mentioned this to you all before, but I was in at an event a few weeks ago, and it was like a really social event, and I was seeing all these people that I'd only seen on Zoom, and we were like so excited to see each other and hugging, and just I was like lit up. Even people said it, they're like, you're just on fire. I was like, I am, because I'm so happy to be with everyone. And yet then after, it was like midway through the second day, I could kind of feel, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit like if I go too much longer, I'm going to start to feel drained. I'm going to start to feel kind of tired. I'm going to start to feel depleted. And so I just noticed that. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go off and be by myself, because that's what I knew I needed, not to be with other people, just be completely in my own energy. And so I headed out the door. And of course, who do I see as I'm heading out the door? But other people that I know, Emily, oh, yeah. And I said, hey, can I talk to you later, please? I just need to go be alone right now. And I may have even said, like, this is just a form of self-care for me. I need to go be alone. And they were like, oh, sure, cool, no problem, And I literally just went out in the hallway. I sat in the sunshine. I was sitting by myself, and I was doing a little things on my phone, just sort of checking up and stuff, but just relaxing by myself. And so for me, that was a form of self-care. And notice, I didn't wait until I got depleted. I didn't wait until I was feeling like, like irritated or like just worn out. I was like, oh, I can start to feel that could happen if I keep going without taking a break. So I stopped. And as a form of my own self-care, I just removed myself. And when people wanted to talk to me while I was removing myself, I said, you know what, I just need to sit by myself for a little bit. Just, it's a very social event. And then thank goodness, they respected it. But if they hadn't respected it, I still would have set a boundary. And if somebody had followed me out the door, I still would have said, I am choosing to be alone right now, and you're not respecting my boundaries. And I really would appreciate it if you would. So, and again, not everybody respects boundaries, and we know this, right? Even if we express them clearly and kindly, but it's our job to set them. And it's our job to make sure that we respect and care for ourselves enough to do what we need to do for ourselves. Okay. Boundaries is a big topic, right? Another form of self-care is respecting our own well-being. This is kind of related to what actually I just said, in which I was saying that I was in a state of wonderful well-being and all lit up and happy. And as soon as I could start to feel that well-being wane a little bit, that's when I realized I needed to shift gears and take a chance to be by myself so that I could still have that sense of well-being for the rest of the event. And one of the things I often say is that my most prized possession is my well-being. It is my emotional health. It is my emotional well-being. And when I say that to people, or some people will say, well, what are you most proud of? I'll say it's my well-being, because I've worked so hard for this well-being. I work so hard to feel this way. I work so hard to be lit up. That doesn't mean I'm like slogging and slaving. No, because that's not being lit up. But it means that I care for myself. I respect myself. I set these boundaries. I honor my own time, and I enforce that when it comes to others. And I take care of my own needs. Or if I feel like somebody else is needed to help me take care of them, then I ask for it. My husband is absolutely amazing. He hasn't been working. He's in transition right now. He was long story, but the point is he has the same job, but just is now in New York City, and he's going to be doing it in New York. But the point is he's had some time off, and it's been fabulous because he's like making me lunch and making me tea and matcha and all this kind of stuff. But, in the past, I would have been like, oh, he'd offer and I'd go, no, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to. And now though, I'll just, I'll say, sweetheart, if you have time, would you mind doing this for me? Because I know that it's going to help me take care of my needs while I'm focusing on other things. And so he says, sure, honey. And I'm really blessed with a wonderful husband. I know he's absolutely wonderful. We've worked really hard on that together, though. Again, this isn't like, it's just magical. Everything's just magically wonderful. It's like we've had to work really hard to be healthy and safe with each other. We've each had to work really hard to be healthy and safe within ourselves. So to that point, in terms of emotional well-being, I have worked so hard for this that I protect it. And I don't mean I protect it with walls. I don't protect it with barbed wire, because that's not entirely healthy. That's more on the X Power. If you've seen the X Power videos, that's episodes. That's more on the X Power side of things, where that's like an inner defender. If you had like inner barbed wire, that would be an inner defender that's trying to keep people out. Mine is instead that I'm just tuned in to when I'm feeling like my well-being's going down, or when I'm feeling like someone's not respecting it, or when I'm feeling I need certain things. And then I do what I can to meet those needs, or I ask others if they can help me meet them, or I, remove myself or set boundaries, whatever I need to do. But my well-being is my most prized possession. And I would encourage you to consider it yours too, more than anything else. They always say, you ain't got nothing unless, if you're unhealthy, then you ain't got nothing, something like that. I don't know the exact term, but the point being that health is everything. And I want to put in there emotional health. Mental, emotional well-being is everything. And that you absolutely should protect that for yourself and honor it and respect it. And that is what self-care is about. It's about, a lot of times self-care is about trying to increase our well-being. But I guess what I'm talking about here is, what about all the choices we make before we suddenly feel desperately in need of some kind of self-care thing? What if we make different choices all along the way, and we support and we honor and we respect and we care for our own well-being? That is actually really what it's about, is respecting that. And especially, by the way, if you're someone who's worked really hard for yours, you better damn well respect it. That is your most prized possession. Body. So when it comes to self-care, notice how I put body towards the end. I shouldn't say that. I didn't necessarily do that deliberately, but I guess it's because so much of self-care, or like the thoughts about, well, you got to care for yourself and is about pampering, as I said. And it's so much focused on the body, and I'm not saying, absolutely, the body is part of self-care and respecting the body. So what we put in our bodies, how we use our bodies, listening to our bodies. And when our bodies are saying, okay, sweetie, okay, we're done. Okay, no, you really need to slow down now. And sometimes the body will do that in ways that we don't necessarily like, with headaches or migraines, or, making us super tired when we have a lot to do and it's trying to slow us down. And so we can sometimes have this argumentative and antagonistic relationship with our bodies. And of course, weight and all that kind of stuff that people are so anxious about. And believe me, I've been anxious about that too, and self-critical about myself. But really, that the body, about when it's about self-care, that the body is extremely important, because as our temple, and as the thing in which we experience life, and as the thing that holds the neurochemicals in our brains and in our guts. There are neurochemicals that are in our guts, and I think they're even made in our gut sometimes. But the point is that this temple, this organism, of course, is extremely important, and that it can also be a wonderful barometer and messenger for you, that's telling you when you're not being self-caring, when you're not respecting yourself. So your body, so your emotions are a fantastic barometer for noticing when maybe you're not caring for yourself, and you've got to respect and honor those emotions and listen to what they're telling you. But then also, and of course, there's like the energetic one, like I described for me, where I could just kind of feel my energy going down. I wasn't getting a headache. I wasn't getting depressed. I wasn't having an emotional reaction. I could just feel my energy kind of going, wee. So it's like emotions, your energy, listen to your energy, notice. And then the body, if you have any symptoms, just honor them, listen to them. And sometimes the answer might be that, well, you need a certain medical intervention, or maybe you need to cut out certain foods, or maybe you need to eat more of other foods. Maybe you need to go for a walk. I am a huge proponent of walks. I go for walks almost every day. They're so fabulous. They balance the mind. They literally balance the left brain, right brain. I may have shared this with you all before. But doing things like that are self-caring and self-respecting. And not only that, respecting the body enough to take the time out for that. So for example, for me, sometimes I'm like, I've got so much work going on and I've got deadlines, but I can feel myself start to get more agitated, and I'll go, okay, you know what? Let me go for a walk, because I know that I need to recenter, reconnect. I know I need the left brain, right brain balance. I know that the movement's going to help me release some of that energy. So the body is a huge part of self-care, of course, but again, it's respecting your body. It's respecting, and it's respecting, again, I feel like the word care has a certain energy, but the word respect has a different energy though. And so again, we can care about something, but when you respect it, you really are honoring it. And you're like, I may not like my body, but I respect the fact that it enables me to get from point A to point B. I respect the fact that it digests my food for me. I respect the fact that it tells me when I'm thirsty. Do you hear that? So you may not care about that, but you respect it, and you respect that your body is constantly working for you. It's constantly working for all of us. Do you have to think about the fact that you're digesting your food? No, it just does it. Like, it's kind of amazing if you think about it. You're like, no, I just put food in my mouth and I don't even think about it. You may have gut issues. I've had gut issues, and sometimes still do. So it can cause, suddenly you're aware of it. It can be uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that I'm actively having to think about, telling my body how to digest the food. It knows. It has its wisdom. It is worthy of your respect. Mine is worthy of my respect, just as your body is worthy of my respect as well. And I can respect the fact that, I can respect you, and I respect your body, and you can respect me and mine. And we can respect one another's boundaries. We can respect one another's energy. We can respect one another's time. We can respect each other. which gets to the final point. I'm almost out of time. Community. That self-care and self-respect are hugely about community and who we surround ourselves with and when. So when we surround ourselves with other people who respect their own time, who respect their own boundaries, who respect their own needs, who respect their well-being, who have that respect for themselves and also for others, that means that when we're surrounded by those people, there's gonna be this wonderful mutual healthy respect. And that if there are any like accidental violations or inadvertent violations or things like that, well then you can have conversations about them, but you're at least speaking from a common understanding of the value and the importance of self-care and self-respect. And that's something I found, by the way, in my own journey with, as I honor myself, it's so much easier. And if I honor my own truth, it is so much easier to honor other people's truths because I'm already honoring my own. So it's not so hard. Whereas if I was just completely giving away my time, giving away my energy, doing everything for everyone else, then I would somehow expect everybody else to do the same. And that might be, just as it's not healthy for me, it's not healthy. It might not be healthy for them. And so the point is, it's about the mutual respect and the mutual care and self-care. So community and who you surround yourself with is huge. And if you're surrounding yourself with people who are being like completely self-sacrificing or have no boundaries or violating your boundaries, etc., or they're not respecting your time, that's going to make it a lot harder for you to set up those boundaries and establish those parameters and do that self-care that you need to do, that all together added up results in wonderful well-being. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's given you a little bit different perspective or a deeper understanding, a deeper perspective about your own self-care and how important it is that self-care is about respecting yourself and then making choices all along the way, not just an occasional manicure, pedicure, or a massage or whatever. Those are wonderful, but those aren't going to fix the lack of self-care and the lack of self-respect that may have gotten to that point where suddenly you're just so exhausted and you need to get away or whatever's going on. Okay, so it's those little choices that we make. So I encourage you to think about that and to really absorb this message of self-respect, because you're worth it, because you are valuable and you are worth respecting every respect. All right. Thank you so much again, Emily. ChangeLight.world. I hope this has been helpful. And I love you. And I will see you next week.